Okay, this is an A clarinet. There is practically no difference between the A and the B flat except for the length. You can't take a B flat lever and put it on an A clarinet because it's longer. You can't take an EB key from a B flat clarinet and put it on the A because the A is longer. And vice versa. You can't put the rings on the A clarinet on the B flat clarinet because they're longer. So I'm going to take a look at this one. First I'm taking it apart. I think I'll probably replace that tenon cork. Seems a little loose. This one seems a little loose. It's again a warning. Don't leave your clarinet set up for any length of time because it squashes the cork and the cork will lose its springiness. So I think I'll replace all three of those. In New Mexico, the wood shrinks pretty quickly. So I've got a loose bell ring. I'll have to fix that. I've got a loose socket ring on the bell. We'll check the barrel. Actually, the barrel's not so bad. And then you've got another ring at the top of the lower joint socket. So that's not so bad. But the bell I need to work on those rings. So let's look at this lower joint. I'm going to replace the pads. They're old. What instrument is 557? Like, I don't know. 2006, 2007, 2008. Excuse me. And I haven't talked much yet this morning. So I'm going to replace the pads. If you look at all the keys, they're all kind of grimy. Let's see. Don't forget, you can use old t-shirts. Here's your polishing cloth. This one is getting pretty grimy, but it's still working. So I'm going to try it on this. The levers are a good place to start. And since my light is so good, that actually cleaned up fairly well. The thing about nickel is it gets kind of foggy. So let me see if I can adjust this light and if you can get a little better idea of see how the touch pieces are a little foggy. So I'm going to try the blue polishing cloth. And it takes a little elbow grease, but you can get it. So you can see a difference now between these two and these two. So yeah, the blue polishing cloth can work pretty well on the nickel if they're not too far gone. And these aren't too bad. Let's look at see how they get kind of foggy? Let's see if we can do something with those. I'm not going to worry too much about messing up the pad because I'm going to replace it anyway. And of course, when I get the keys off, I'm going to do this when the keys are off. I'm just seeing right now how much I may have to do. It's really not turning out too badly. Of course, you're probably all finding out that the little area beside the arm. Okay, so that came out pretty nice. Compare that to the EB. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Let's do one more here. Let's do the sliver key. nickel gets a little foggy. That's the adjective I use. It's some kind of tarnish, but it's not exactly the same kind of tarnish as silver. So that came out pretty nice. So I'll use the silver cloth on the keys once I take it apart and take all the pads off. It's a little easier to do that way. And I won't have to worry about tearing pads. I'm looking at corks, key corks. These all look pretty good. I probably won't replace those. Let's see. I'm looking down the bore just so I don't suck anything. And there's not much vacuum at all. So I'm going to put synthetic pads on it, which will improve that greatly. That'll be nice. The wood looks in good shape. I don't see any cracks, gouges. The tenon, you always want to look at the tenon. These are things that we're going to start talking about overall. A little more refinement in our work. So look at the tenon. See if you can see any cracks on the outside. Usually in a tenon crack, it goes to the inside because it's so thin. The same thing with a socket. If a socket cracks, it usually goes to the outside. But the actual bore itself is pretty thick. So usually they're just surface cracks. So this needs a good cleaning. I see a little rocking here, but not much. That's not too bad. Of course, the EB key always tends to be that way. Also, I'm going to check the end play in the EB and the F sharp, C sharp. If I can, I will countersink the pivot screws. If I don't need to, just tighten them up. Sometimes if you check for end play, go back and forth, and you just go to the pivot screws and tighten them up, of course without binding the key, you may take care of that. Yep, there it is. And it works fine. So I've taken care of that end play, and the key still functions. Same thing with the F sharp, C sharp. Any key with pivot screws, you want to make sure the pivot screws are all the way in all the time. Now that one tightened up too much, it's binding. So I'll just back off a little bit, back off a little bit more. So I've eliminated the end play, but the key still functions. And then of course, as I put it back together, I'll lubricate the mechanism. Same thing with the ring keys. I'm not getting any play there. So this horn's in pretty good shape actually. I need to swedge the lever there. The key, the left FC is working well. I think this horn may have been Brannonized at one time. We'll take a look at that as we take it apart. Now we'll go to the upper joint. I always check this side, right side E flat, B flat, and it's going to be hard to tell on the video, but you can see that it's rocking a little bit. It's got a little bit of side to side play, so I'll swedge that. And then as I take these keys off, I'll check the side to side play. I'll probably work a little bit on the F sharp. Then usually the B flat and B aren't bad, but I'll probably swedge those a little bit. Of course, I always check the register key. And again, it's just moving a little bit side to side. So I'll swedge those tubes. I always check the thumb ring. Sometimes the thumb ring play can be eliminated by turning the rod all the way in. But I'll need to work on that a little bit, and I have a little room to do some swedging. on that. So there's a little play there. Check the A key always. There's a little play there. Side to side. I'll swedge that. There's a little room to work on the F sharp B ring, and then the A ring. If I find a little play, I'll check the pivot screw first. And if that's all the way in and there's still a little play, I'll make sure that the rod is all the way in. Remember, the end of this rod supports the top end of this key. So it's holding it now, but it's binding. So I'll back off a little bit. And I've got it free, and I no longer have end play here. So I turned the pivot screw in, didn't take care of it, turned the rod in, and then took care of the end play. But you also, if you go too far, you can bind that key. I turn the fan on. It's a little cool or a little warm in here. Okay. Then, of course, I'm looking down the bore. Make sure there's nothing in there, spiders, cobwebs, dirt, grime. I'm looking at pads. Again, there are bladder pads on here. I'll replace all the pads. This is a little better than the lower joint. The pads are in a little better shape. The bumper corks look good. I'll probably leave those. Unless, of course, I knock one off when I'm doing the cleaning. And again, I'll test, see how the A-flat key is a little foggy. I'll take my blue cloth, and this blue cloth, I've been using this for a while, and it's still working. So you can use these things for a good long time. See how that came out? That's pretty nice, actually. Yeah, that's not too bad.
So
let's compare. Here's a new blue cloth, and here's one I've been using for a while. This still works. So use it until it doesn't work anymore, then toss it. Then get a new one. They're not that expensive. So they work quite well, and they last quite a long time. Not plugging them or whatever, but that's what I use. Sunshine Soft Blue. That's all you need. Anything more abrasive, you really don't need it. So I've got some swedging to do on this upper joint. I'm going to look for cracks. Cracks are more common on the upper joint because the water collects there sooner and gets absorbed in the wood more at the top, and then it will expand on the inside and crack the outside. So again, usually cracks aren't fatal. You could fill them. If they go through to the bore, then you have to make a decision. Do you want to replace the joint, or do you want to pin the crack? But you've got some choices. So this clarinet's not in such terrible shape. Okay. So that's the evaluation of the A clarinet. So when we come back, I'm going to start taking the thing apart. Okay.